What if I told you the same man who defended his title with 17 straight knockouts
The referee Fallon steps in and stops the fight.
was later found locked inside a filthy house, delusional, addicted, and on the brink of death? Wilfredo Bazooka Gómez wasn't just a champion. He was a knockout artist with a record-breaking streak that made him a national icon in Puerto Rico. But the rise was nothing compared to the crash. We're talking federal drug charges, jail time, a psych ward, and yes, what some say was a full-blown hostage situation. How does a man go from the top of the boxing world to being rescued like a prisoner in his own home? To answer that, we need to go all the way back to where the Wilfredo Gómez story really began. Wilfredo Gómez didn't grow up chasing glory. He grew up chasing survival. In the crowded Las Montes neighborhood of San Juan, he was just a kid on a bike selling candy, hustling to help his overworked mother keep food on the table. There were no daydreams of fame, just grit born from necessity. And Gómez had that in spades. Boxing wasn't a glamorous escape. It was a street fight with rules. The amateur scene in 1970s Puerto Rico was ruthless, but Gómez didn't flinch. He carved his name into it with pure willpower. And get this, before he ever went pro, he had racked up 96 wins with just 3 losses. That's not just rare, that's borderline mythic. By 1974, he was dominating. He stormed through the World Amateur Boxing Championship in Havana to claim gold, then doubled down with another top prize at the Central American and Caribbean Games. But back home, none of that changed the reality. The medals didn't pay rent. The cheers didn't buy groceries. The applause faded. And the struggle stayed. Most fighters dream of Olympic glory. Gómez had already tasted it in Munich '72, but by '76, he didn't have the time or privilege to wait around for a second shot. His family needed money, and they needed it now. So at just 19, he made the hard choice: skip the Olympics and go pro. He didn't have the luxury of waiting. It was about earning a living, not chasing headlines. But turning pro wasn't the smooth leap he'd hoped for. His debut was a gut punch. Fighting in Panama City, miles from home and even further from comfort, he was held to a frustrating draw against Jacinto Fuentes. After all the hype, all the hard work, that result stung. Most fighters would have buckled. But Gómez wasn't most fighters. If anything, it lit a fire. He knew he was better, and he was ready to make sure the world knew it too. What came next was a total reinvention. He didn't just bounce back, he detonated. The slick amateur transformed into a full-blown knockout machine. Sharp, explosive, lethal. Opponents didn't just lose, they barely made it out of the first round. And by 1977, just 16 fights in, Gómez went straight for it, taking on Dong Kyun Yum for the WBC junior featherweight title. It wasn't an easy fight, but Gómez broke him down piece by piece and finished the job in the 12th. That belt wasn't just a prize, it was validation. The kid hustling candy through San Juan streets was now a world champion. But winning the title was just the beginning. What came next was pure destruction. Starting with Yum, Gómez went on a tear, 17 consecutive knockouts in world title fights. 17. No one in boxing history has matched it. The message was clear. Facing Gómez wasn't a title shot, it was a death sentence. For fans, every match became an event. For opponents, he was a nightmare they couldn't wake up from. The nickname Bazooka fit perfectly. His style wasn't about wild swings. It was calculated, precise destruction. He picked apart his opponents. It didn't matter whether they'd seen his style on tape or studied footage. By the time they faced him, it was already too late. He'd find their weakness, expose it, and finish the job. And the fans loved every minute. For a while, it seemed like nothing could stop him. But here's the crazy part. Even as he dominated, there were whispers. Whispers about his temperament, about corners being cut, about a superstar who didn't always train like one. Fame had found Gómez, and not everyone liked how he handled it. Still, the knockout streak kept silencing the critics. After all, who could argue with 17 straight knockouts? But every streak invites doubt. Every highlight reel gets played in slow motion. And as Gómez's legend grew, so did the questions. Were all those wins clean? Was the destruction as pure as it looked? Because sometimes the biggest wins hide the deepest cracks. Some fighters are remembered for their knockouts, but with Wilfredo Gómez, it's the chaos that came with them. His greatest victories sparked debates that still haven't been settled. The question was never just, did he win? It was, what really happened in there? And how far did he go? Take 1978, when he faced Carlos Zarate. This wasn't just another title defense. Zarate walked in undefeated 52-0, with a reputation for finishing fights early. The hype was off the charts. Two champions, both with perfect records, both knockout artists. But behind the scenes, things were already unraveling. Zarate wasn't healthy. He'd nearly killed himself to make weight, sweating it out in saunas and even heated cars just to hit the 122-pound limit. There were rumors of illness. Some said a cold, others whispered pneumonia. He later claimed he was forced to fight under threat of legal action. Whatever the truth was, by the time he stepped into that ring, he wasn't the same fighter. None of that mattered once the bell rang, though. And Gómez? He smelled blood. He came out aggressive, stalking Zarate and landing the cleaner, sharper shots. The early rounds were competitive, but then came the fourth, where the real drama exploded. Gómez knocked Zarate down twice. But here's the issue. It happened after the bell. The arena was so loud it was hard to tell if he even heard it. Some called it an accident, others saw it as a cheap shot. The debate started right there and never really stopped. It got worse in the fifth. Zarate was already worn down, and after another knockdown, Gómez hit him with a right hand while he was still on the canvas. No gray area here. That was a clear foul. Referee Harry Gibbs stepped in, but didn't stop the fight. No disqualification, no point deduction, just a brief warning, then right back to action. Moments later, Zarate hit the deck again, and that was it. Gómez won by TKO. On paper, it was another dominant win. But to many fans and boxing purists, it felt dirty. Should Gómez have been disqualified? Did the fight even belong on the books, given Zarate's physical condition? Depends who you ask. Fast forward to 1985. Gómez was chasing a third world title, this time at junior lightweight, and got the shot against Rocky Lockridge. The WBA belt was on the line, and Gómez had home advantage in San Juan. But Lockridge didn't care. The fight was close, really close. He came in sharp, aggressive, and backed Gómez up early. Ringside experts, including NBC's Dr. Ferdy Pacheco, had Lockridge clearly ahead. Pacheco scored it by 6 points. But in the late rounds, Gómez found another gear. The Associated Press noted he took charge in round 11 with quick combos and smart movement to sway the judges.
And as Gómez landing with the right hand, looking a bit more confident.
When the cards came in, the scores were razor thin. 2 judges had Gómez by a point. One called it a draw. San Juan erupted. Everyone else, outraged.
Unanimous decision. Wilfredo Gómez.
FightScore.com users were unanimous. Lockridge got robbed. Was it a heroic comeback or hometown favoritism? You decide. These fights are more than just chapters in his career. They're the moments that shaped how Gómez is remembered. He always found a way to win. But sometimes how he won raised eyebrows. Fouls, controversy, razor-thin decisions. His biggest triumphs often came with an asterisk. Still, the legend grew. Fans saw a man who rose to the occasion even when things got ugly. But those same moments that made him a star also exposed something else, a fighter who played close to the edge, and sometimes over it. The ring was just the beginning. The real chaos was waiting outside the ropes. The shift didn't happen overnight. In the early days, Gómez was all business, focused, hungry, and relentless. But with success came temptation. Fame brought him more than money. It brought fast cars, wild nights, and endless distractions. From the outside, it looked like he'd made it, but the discipline that built Bazooka started to dwindle. It's one thing to enjoy the fruits of your labor, and another to let them consume you. Soon, his name was making headlines for all the wrong reasons. The knockouts were still there, but so were the scandals and a reputation for living large and chasing every thrill. And as the wins piled up and the spotlight grew hotter, so did his appetite for attention and indulgence. He became addicted to the performance outside the ring, turning every press conference into a spectacle, every weigh-in into theater. He taunted opponents with a swagger that bordered on arrogance, always looking for the psychological edge. It wasn't enough to beat someone. He wanted to humiliate, to break them before the first bell. But when you live in the fast lane, something eventually catches up. And for Gómez, it did. Hard. It all came to a head in 1981. That's when he stepped into the most dangerous fight of his life, and wasn't ready. The showdown with Salvador Sanchez was supposed to be his crowning moment. Instead, it exposed just how far he'd strayed. In the lead-up, he didn't just trash talk. He was crossing lines that even the rowdiest boxers avoided. He called Sanchez a schoolgirl, a prostitute. It wasn't hype, it was venom. But this time, the mind games backfired. Sanchez completely ignored the bait, used them as fuel, and came into the fight more focused than ever. Gómez? Not so much. He was partying on a cruise ship just weeks before the fight. Not training, not focused. Floating on distractions while Sanchez sharpened his weapons. Don King even had to call him on a satellite phone to beg him to take it seriously. Gómez's response? He wanted the fight postponed. That wasn't the hungry kid from San Juan anymore. That was a man losing his edge and about to pay for it, because when the bell rang, the price of that cruise came due. The results were a brutal reality check. Sanchez dropped him in the very first round, exposing flaws we'd never seen in him before. The fight lasted all the way to the 8th round, but by then it was clear Gómez wasn't walking away with a victory. TKO. Just like that, the undefeated streak was gone. The air of invincibility shattered. It wasn't just a loss. It was a public unraveling. The partying, the cruise ship, the arrogance, it had all come back to haunt him. You'd think that kind of beating would be a wake-up call, but not for Gómez. Instead of dialing it in, he doubled down. The drinking, the late nights, the mayhem, it became his new normal. He kept winning for a while, even moved up and collected more titles, but it wasn't the same. The sharpness declined, the stamina dipped, and the whispers got louder. Each win looked a little shakier, and behind the scenes it was clear Gómez was slipping. The truth goes deeper though, doesn't it? This isn't just a Wilfredo Gómez problem, it's a boxing problem. If you followed our channel, you know how often this story repeats itself. The sport is full of stories like his, fighters who climb out of poverty, grab hold of fame, and then crash when the money and pressure hit. Gómez wasn't an exception. There's no manual for handling fame when you've spent your life just trying to survive. No guidance, no safety net. And the promoters, the managers, they're happy to cash in. But when the spotlight fades, they vanish too. Just look at Edwin Rosario and Wilfred Benitez, who we already made a video on. Champions who burned bright and fell hard. It's a system designed to take everything a fighter has inside the ring and offer nothing once the cheering stops. Gómez's downfall wasn't some twist of fate. It was a slow-motion collapse, driven by the same swagger that once made him a star. The high life felt good, but those same indulgences weren't just perks of success. They were warning signs, and when the noise quieted, those habits didn't disappear, they got louder. His fall from grace was a nosedive, addiction, legal trouble, and a total unraveling of the man once hailed as a national hero. His 1989 move to Venezuela wasn't a retirement, it was more like an escape. But the demons he carried didn't respect borders. Full-blown substance abuse took over. The same discipline that made him a legend in the ring? Gone. Replaced by chaos, paranoia, and self-sabotage. The bazooka that once blasted through opponents was now firing blanks, aimless, lost, and completely out of control. By 1992, the fall was no longer behind closed doors. It exploded into full public view in the most shocking way possible when his name appeared in federal court records. Not for a minor slip-up, but for something far darker, aiding and abetting the possession of heroin with intent to distribute. This was a federal drug trafficking case. No spin, no excuses, and the courtroom stripped away any last shred of the champion image. To those who watched him rise from San Juan streets to global stardom, it was unthinkable. Gómez the hero had become Gómez the convict. It wasn't just tragic, it was shocking. Fame, fortune, legacy, all of it teetering on the edge. But this wasn't the end. He didn't let it be. After serving his sentence, Gómez did something most never do. He looked in the mirror and admitted he needed help. He checked into rehab in Colombia, not as a star, but as a broken man trying to fight his way back. For a former world champion to say, "I can't do this alone," that takes a different kind of strength. Rehab was grueling, but he didn't quit. He stayed out of the spotlight, put in the work, and fought for something bigger than a belt: himself. But sobriety didn't fix everything. Just 2 years later, he was arrested and hauled back into federal court on domestic violence and cocaine possession charges, and it wasn't the last time. Fast forward to 2015, another 911 call, another domestic violence arrest. His partner refused to testify, the case vanished, and the pattern marched on. It painted a disturbing picture: addiction, unresolved anger, and the pressure of living in the shadow of his former self. Was this the price of a life built on violence and adrenaline, or the sport's failure to protect its heroes once the lights dim? Either way, the damage was done. Gómez had conquered legends with cold precision, yet behind closed doors he was still swinging, this time at the people who loved him. Then came the twist no one saw coming: faith. When he returned to Puerto Rico, it was as a man trying to rebuild. By all accounts, he stayed clean, and in 1998, he became a born-again Christian, trading chaos for conviction. For someone who had lived his life in the extremes, this new chapter gave him something he'd never really had: peace. He didn't run from his past. He owned it. Those close to him say he was sincere about his transformation, and this time, the fight wasn't against opponents or critics. It was against relapse, regret, and the urge to self-destruct. But not everyone was willing to forgive and forget. Public memory is cruel, and the stain of his legal troubles never fully faded. For every person who admired his comeback, there was another who couldn't forget the mugshot. To some, he was a man redeemed. To others, he was the boxer who threw it all away. Even as he settled into a quieter, more stable life, he couldn't escape judgment. That's the curse of a public downfall. Your worst moments never die. And while he may have beaten addiction, life wasn't done testing him. Because just when things seemed to calm down, the real tragedy hit. His body finally began to break. In 2018, he was hospitalized with pneumonia and pulmonary edema. His lungs filled with fluid, and breathing became a fight he could barely win. But that was just the beginning of a deeper collapse. The real shock came in March 2022. News broke that Gómez was found in horrifying conditions in Cupi, San Juan. The reports were hard to read: bearded, disheveled, unkempt, dirty, face and legs swollen. The once proud champion was now almost unrecognizable, living in filth, forgotten by the world that once worshipped him, and the story only gets darker. Gómez wasn't just neglected. He was allegedly being held hostage by his ex-lover, Diana Sevilla Villalobos. According to family and friends, including his wife Carolina Gamboa and fellow champ Victor Callejas, they had to stage a rescue. A rescue. For a man who used to drop legends in the ring, this was surreal. A fallen icon held captive in his own home. But it wasn't just physical decline. After being removed from what authorities described as an exploitative situation, Gómez was immediately taken to a psychiatric hospital. That's when the truth became undeniable. This wasn't just the aftermath of a few bad choices. This was the long shadow of a lifetime of war. A mind worn down by violence, addiction, and years of instability. The reaction across Puerto Rico and the boxing community was a mix of heartbreak and outrage. Sympathy poured in for him, a national hero who had given everything to the sport, only to end up isolated, broken, and barely surviving. But sympathy quickly turned to anger. How did it get this bad? Where were the people who claimed to care? How does a legend slip so far through the cracks without anyone stepping in? Some pointed fingers at those closest to him. Others blamed boxing itself, a sport known for chewing up its stars and spitting them out when the crowds go home. His struggles went beyond what we could see. Years earlier, a boxing injury had left him with a speech impediment. Every slurred syllable was a reminder of the punches he'd taken, the wars he'd fought, the price of glory. And like so many before him, Gómez faced the reality that there's little support for athletes. Once their careers end, the spotlight disappears, but the pain never does. This isn't just about Gómez's personal choices. It's a damning reflection of how boxing discards its heroes. Fighters like him come from poverty, give everything in the ring, and are left with nothing. No pension, no roadmap, no safety net, just silence. The hostage incident made that brutally clear. If the reports were true, Gómez's declining health had made him an easy target for manipulation. The idea that a former champion could be held against his will, cut off from help, shows just how vulnerable he had become. That moment exposed just how broken the infrastructure is for aging fighters. Wilfredo Gómez's name will always carry weight. His knockout streak, his world titles, his Hall of Fame induction, they're cemented in boxing history. But moments like this serve as a sobering warning about what can happen when the lights go out and the support disappears. That's where the legend fades and the man is left to fight alone. That's the complexity of Wilfredo Gómez, a hero, a victim of his own choices, and a survivor, all rolled into one. The blame is messy, so tell us what you think. Was it those closest to him who failed to step in? The industry that profited off his blood and talent? Or was it a combination of personal choices and systemic neglect? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if Wilfredo Gómez's story moved you, don't let it fade like so many others have. Hit that like button, subscribe for more stories that go beyond the ring, and chime in. How should boxing treat its fallen heroes?